Hi, good Monday. Time for a Monday story. For about the last 10 years or so, I've had my students either find a quote that they really like that means a lot to them or make up their own quote. And then we put it on the computer and design a CNC program, computer numerical control program for the CNC router so it can carve out their quote. And so every year I go through this assignment. And this is a quote that means a lot to me. This is my mother's quote. I believe this is her quote that she came up with herself and that she's passed on to her kids and that she lives by. And it's a quote that I think, really maybe could help you out. So anyway, on this assignment, I had this quote as an example. And, we were going through the assignment with a student, and he's like, boy, Mr. Heiser, that's a pretty dumb quote. And, I hadn't told him it was my mom's quote or anything, or that it meant a lot to me. He said it was a pretty dumb quote. I'm like, well, what makes that quote dumb? And he's like, I don't know. It's just a terrible quote. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what does, adversity mean? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, how about perseverance? Do you know what perseverance means? And he thinks for a minute, and he's like, no, I don't. And I'm like, how about creative? Do you know what the word creative means? And he was thinking for a minute. And this is a high school student. And he's like, no, I really don't know what creative means. And, I kind of stopped there. And I'm like, well, there's 5 words in this quote, and, you're telling me that you might not know what 3 out of those 5 words mean. So, I mean, I don't know how you can call that a dumb quote when you don't know what it means. So, that is a really great example of ignorance. So, we talked about a little bit, and we talked about adversity. Adversity is, when you have challenges, things that are struggles or hardships. And then we talked about the word creative a little bit. Creative is trying to do something out of the box or original or different. And then we talked about perseverance. Perseverance is being persistent with difficulties to try to overcome them. So, me is like, face, come against it, face your challenges with, creative, persistence, and, even out of the box or different persistence, or, there's lots of ways you can say this quote, but, after I helped to educate him a little bit on what the quote actually meant, he was like, oh yeah, I guess it's not that stupid. And, I see that a lot in our society all over the place. People won't, something that's different or they don't know what it means. It's automatically, dumb or stupid. And, sometimes we just got to move a little bit slower and think what something means and how it goes together. So anyway, this is a quote that, when I'm having some struggles, I usually try to think about, or, I come across something that I'm challenged with. I try to think of some other ways to do that. My mother was great at that, has been great at that her whole life, coming up with unique ways to get around her problems. And so she's kind of pushed that on us, ways to come up with that. So find your quote. I talk about quotes quite a bit on the Monday stories, but hopefully you'll have several quotes that kind of can help you out when you need them. And don't be ignorant. Know what the heck you're talking about. And we've all been guilty of that at times, where you just something you don't know or understand, you just brush it under the rug like it's stupid or it's not important. And a lot of times there's a little bit more to that, and you can really offend people. I wasn't terribly offended with that example with that student, but a lot of times you can really make someone upset, just not knowing what it means. So that is your Monday story. Have a great Monday.